What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, hi, hello, my name is McGilbus and people call me Milo, and today we are going to be reacting to three short true Christmas animations. It's from three different channels. The first one that we're going to be watching right now is Santa, A Christmas Horror Story by the channel Fear Me Down. And it looks like it's going to be really creepy. It's Santa's Bloody Secret. So yeah, that's what we're going to be watching. So don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and let's get on with the video.
It started with an innocent snowstorm on Christmas Eve, blanketing the small, picturesque town of Willow Pines in a layer of pristine white. Every house on Maple Street twinkled with colorful lights, and the scent of fresh-baked cookies wafted through the air. Children laughed, parents wrapped last-minute presents, and carolers sang under glowing street lamps. It was a perfect holiday scene, until the snow turned red. No one knew where the first scream came from. Maybe it was old Mr. Jenkins at the corner of Maple and Oak, or perhaps it was the Thompsons' teenage son who had dared to stay out too late. By the time the second scream echoed, the town had already plunged into chaos. The only thing anyone could agree on was the cause: a man in a crimson suit, his beard stained with blood and his eyes burning like coals.
Why does this
Santa
remind me
had come
of
to town,
this
and he wasn't
new,
leaving until he
Terrifier
checked
movie?
his list twice and punished everyone who had been naughty. Welcome to Fear Me Down's chilling tale, where holiday cheer turns into a nightmare. Sit tight, turn off the lights, and don't forget to subscribe for more bone-chilling stories like this. Let's dive into the horrors of Santa, A Christmas Horror Story. Willow Pines was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names and waved at strangers on the street. The holiday season turned the town into a postcard-worthy dream, with wreaths hanging on every door and a towering Christmas tree in the town square. This year, the tree was adorned with thousands of lights, each one shimmering like a star. Evelyn Carter, a single mother of two, was finishing up her shift at the diner on Main Street. She wiped down the counter and glanced at the clock. It was 11:45 p.m. The streets outside were deserted except for the occasional flurry of snow drifting past the glowing streetlights. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Maybe it was the eerie silence or the way the wind howled like a wounded animal. "Mom, are you coming home soon?" Evelyn's daughter Mia chirped through the phone. She was 8 years old with a precocious curiosity that sometimes got her into trouble. "I'll be home in 10 minutes, sweetheart," Evelyn reassured her. "Don't stay up too late waiting for Santa." Mia giggled. "Okay, love you." As Evelyn stepped outside, she noticed something strange. A line of footprints in the snow led away from the diner, but there were no cars in sight. The prints were massive, like those of a bear, but shaped like boots. She shook her head, dismissing it as her imagination, and hurried to her car. Across town, a group of teenagers had gathered at the abandoned Blackwell farmhouse for a Christmas Eve party. The house was infamous for its haunted history, rumors of a family disappearing on Christmas Day decades ago. Of course, that only made it the perfect spot for thrill-seeking teens. "Did you hear about the Santa sightings?" Jake, the self-proclaimed class clown, asked as he passed around a flask. "What Santa sightings?" Lisa, the skeptical straight-A student, rolled her eyes. "Some weirdo dressed as Santa has been creeping around town," Jake said, his voice dropping into an exaggerated whisper. "They say he's not just looking for cookies and milk, he's looking for blood." Everyone laughed, but the mood shifted when they heard a faint jingling outside. "What was that?" Sarah, the quiet one,
This is starting to remind me
her
of
voice
the
trembling.
new Terrifier
"Probably
movie.
just the
It was the
wind,"
Terrifier
Jake
3.
said,
This
though
was
he didn't
reminding me
sound
of.
convinced. The jingling grew louder, accompanied by the crunch of heavy footsteps in the snow. The group huddled together, peering out the frost-covered window. In the distance, a figure emerged from the shadows. He wore a red suit, but it was tattered and stained. His beard hung in matted clumps, and his face, oh, his face, was a mask of rage and hunger. "Ho, ho, ho!" the figure bellowed, his voice echoing like a death knell.
Yeah, ho,
Panic
ho, ho,
erupted.
you're gonna die.
Jake grabbed a baseball bat from the corner while Lisa frantically tried to call for help, but there was no signal. The lights flickered, then went out entirely, plunging the house into darkness. "We need to get out of here," Sarah cried. Before anyone could respond, the front door burst open with a deafening crack. Santa, if you could call him that, loomed in the doorway, his eyes glowing an unnatural red. He held a massive candy cane, sharpened to a deadly point. Jake charged at him with the bat, but Santa was faster. With a sickening crunch, the candy cane plunged into Jake's chest. Blood sprayed across the room as the others screamed. Lisa and Sarah bolted for the back door, while the rest of the group scattered. Santa's guttural laugh followed them as he dragged Jake's lifeless body into the snow. Meanwhile, Evelyn arrived home to find Mia and her younger brother, Ben, waiting by the fireplace. The tree was aglow with multicolored lights, and the stockings were hung with care. For a moment, everything felt normal. "Did you leave cookies out for Santa?" Evelyn asked, ruffling Ben's hair. "Uh-huh," Ben said, pointing to the plate on the coffee table. But as Evelyn tucked the kids into bed, she noticed something odd. The cookies were gone and the milk glass was empty. She hadn't heard anyone come in. Her heart raced as she checked the locks on the doors and windows. Everything was secure. "Just my imagination," she muttered, though her unease lingered. At 2 a.m., she awoke to a noise downstairs. A deep guttural chuckle echoed through the house. Grabbing a kitchen knife, she crept toward the living room. The sight that greeted her froze her blood. Santa stood by the fireplace, his crimson suit soaked with blood. He turned to her, revealing a face twisted into a grotesque grin. "You've been very naughty, Evelyn," he growled. Evelyn fought back with every ounce of strength she had, slashing at Santa with the knife. But he was relentless, his monstrous strength overpowering her at every turn. The noise woke Mia and Ben, who screamed as they saw their mother battling the monstrous figure. "Run!" Evelyn shouted at her children. Mia grabbed Ben's hand and they bolted out the back door. Evelyn managed to land a blow, stabbing Santa in the side, but it only seemed to enrage him. He roared, grabbing her by the throat and slamming her against the wall. "You can't escape Christmas," he hissed. "Will Mia and Ben survive? Will Evelyn find a way to defeat the twisted Santa? Or will the town of Willow Pines become a graveyard of holiday horrors? Stay tuned for the full story on Fear Me Down, where the chilling conclusion will leave you breathless. If you enjoyed this tale, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss a scare. Until next time, keep the lights on. Fear Me Down, where nightmares are just the beginning.
I personally do not believe that. I believe like maybe the kids would survive. I don't think the mom is gonna survive. So I think that's pretty much saying do not trust or like do not be like, oh, it's my imagination, because it probably isn't your imagination when it comes to stuff like this. Also, let me see. Yeah, those teens, they didn't stand a chance. Honestly, she probably would stand a chance if she was able to stab the creature in the neck. Maybe. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be like a psycho person or if it's actually supposed to be like off of Terrifier and it's just a fucking demonic Santa. Okay, so this next video is from MJV Animations, and it's 3 true Christmas holiday horror stories animated.
This happened in 2015. I had just moved to a small house far from my hometown the year before, so I was still getting used to the area and hadn't met many people yet. I worked from home as well, which made it even harder. Anyway, for Christmas, I had no plans at all. My family was too far, and I didn't have enough vacation time to go out and see them, so this was actually going to be my first Christmas alone.
That's sad.
On Christmas Eve, I stayed up working, figuring I'd just get ahead on some things, so I didn't have to worry about doing anything on Christmas Day. I was working in the living room, listening to music as well, when through it, I heard something coming from outside. I pulled out one of the earbuds and listened, but didn't hear anything else, so I got up and looked around. With my earbuds in, it was hard to know what direction it came from, but I was pretty sure it was outside the house, not inside. I looked out the back window, not seeing anything, then moved to the front window and again saw nothing. But then I looked out the front door. On the porch were a set of shoe prints in the snow. They led right up to my doorstep and then back out to the driveway. There was no mail dropped off or anything at all on the porch, just the shoe prints. It was really strange and made me feel a little anxious, not knowing why anyone would be walking up to my doorstep at 11 p.m. on Christmas Eve. I made sure the door was locked and went back to work, then got in bed soon after. It was a bit strange waking up on Christmas morning, feeling like it was any other day. I brewed a cup of coffee and sat on my chair to watch TV. I think I spent the whole morning just sitting there and watching shows and movies. I gave my parents a call and talked to them for a bit, but that was really about all I did. I thought about going out, but it was really cold and the wind was really strong, so I just stayed in for the day. By 6 p.m., I had basically done nothing all day and made some dinner, planning on going to bed early. But then I heard something outside. It was the shuffling sound of footsteps in the snow coming toward the front door. I stayed quiet, knowing nobody should be here. After a few seconds, the footsteps sounded again, walking away from the house. I went up and checked, seeing almost an identical scene to what I saw the previous night. After that, I forced myself to stay up later. I kept my eyes open until probably around 10, before I guess I fell asleep on the couch. I remember getting really tired and trying to stay up, but I didn't plan on falling asleep out there. When I woke up, the TV was still on and flashing light throughout the dark room. I sat up and paused it, then got up to go to my bedroom. As I walked down the hallway though, my eyes instantly locked on my bedroom door. It was open, but I knew I always kept it closed. I walked over and pushed it open wider, then flicked on the light. Wet shoe prints were scattered around the floor, going to and from the window. In a complete state of shock, I spun around and turned on the hallway light, now seeing more shoe prints going down toward the living room. I followed them, but they stopped right outside the living room, looking like they'd turned and went back right after seeing me on the couch. The shoe prints were nowhere else in the house. Police did what they could, but if I'm being honest, they weren't of much help. The current theory is that the man had come by the previous 2 nights to see if I was home. After not answering the door though, he likely thought I was away for the holidays. I know it's likely that he only broke into my house to rob me, but still, it's extremely disturbing, especially since I was at home sleeping when it all happened. Whoever it was though, they never came back.
That's a good thing. In my
Last
opinion,
December,
that's a good
I
thing.
traveled across the country to meet my parents and siblings for Christmas. My parents had a decent-sized house, so we would usually just all stay there and sleep on the couch or in the spare bedrooms. That being said, I didn't rent any hotels, even for the drive. It was 10 hours long, but I just didn't see a need in stopping halfway there and wasting a whole night. I left early on the 23rd, planning it out to get to the house around dinner time. As I started the drive, snow was lightly coming down. Nothing crazy, but enough to cause a bit of traffic. This went on for a few hours, until it suddenly started pouring down. It happened over just 30 minutes, going from a very light downfall to an extremely heavy storm. Along with the winds, it was nearly impossible to see anything in front of me. Most other cars started to pull off to the side of the road, but I really wanted to keep going. I drove in these horrible conditions for the better part of an hour, having a few close calls before deciding enough was enough. I pulled into a motel and sat in the parking lot, waiting for the snow to clear up. There were a lot of other cars in the parking lot, but I think most were probably trying to wait it out like I was. But as the sun started to set, there was no chance of that happening anytime soon. I reluctantly went in and got a room. I went to my room and lay down on the bed. It was around 8 o'clock at this point, and I'd figured I'd just sleep now and see if it was clear in a few hours. I set an alarm on my phone for 11, then passed out. But when I woke up, I immediately knew something was wrong. I turned and looked at my phone, seeing it was just before 2 a.m. My alarm didn't go off. I quickly got out of bed and ran up to the window. The parking lot was almost empty now, but it was still snowing pretty bad. I sat back on the bed, and after some thinking, I decided to take the loss and just spend the rest of the night there and hope for the best in the morning. I laid down, closing my eyes, but now that I was more calm, something caught my attention. A cold breeze blowing through the room, and the clear sound of wind. I sat up, seeing the window at the end of the bed was cracked open. I got up and shut it, but I was almost positive it was closed when I went to bed. It's something I definitely would have noticed, being that there was a whole storm outside. A rush of adrenaline went through me as I started to worry. I faced the rest of the room, now looking into the dark and standing still, listening for anything. Then I slowly walked around, checking for anything missing or any signs that someone had been inside. I didn't see or find anything until I went to check out the peephole. That's when I noticed that both locks on the door were now open. Someone had unlocked it from the inside. Blood rushed from my face as I locked the door and backed away, thinking through every possible horrifying scenario that I could be caught in right now. I started putting my things back into my bag and getting ready to leave, but then there was a sudden shake of the door handle. I stared at it with wide eyes, seeing the handle move back and forth like they were trying to force it open. Then it went silent. I waited for a long couple minutes before I slowly and quietly crept toward the door to check if it was safe to make a run for my car. I looked out the peephole, seeing a man leaning against the door like he was listening. I was frozen, but he must have heard something because only a few seconds later he rushed away from the door. I spent no time waiting, leaving the room soon after and getting in my car, pulling out and leaving the motel. I got lucky as nobody else was on the roads and they seemed to have just been plowed. I drove through the storm until I got to my parents' house, taking much longer than it should have. What that man was trying to do, I can't even begin to think of. They had obviously been in the room while I was sleeping and unlocked the door, but what they wanted and why they had to come back to my room, I just don't know. But if I hadn't woken up when I did and stayed asleep for just a minute longer, I might have never made it to my parents' house.
That's the scary thing about hotels, is that is what happens. Sorry, there's an ad. I'm not cutting this out. takes too long. But that's the scary thing about motels, is like there's so many sketchy people.
2 years ago, I spent Christmas with my roommate. We were both in college and were splitting rent on a small home in the suburbs outside of the campus. Neither of our families apparently were really big on Christmas, and we were also kind of broke, so we stayed home for winter break. We still did a bit of decorating, and I'd gotten each other some cheap little gifts so we could have our own small Christmas.
That's nice.
But other than that, we mostly planned on watching movies and maybe going to a party at night. On Christmas Day, we opened up our gifts and hung out, and around 5, my roommate wanted to go to a party by the campus. I'd planned on going too, but for some reason, I was just tired and not really in the mood to go out. I encouraged him to go if he wanted to, and he took up on the offer, heading out by 6. I sat back and ate some junk food, watching TV and just relaxing, I guess. But then around 8, I just felt like getting up and doing something. With no places open, I grabbed my jacket and decided to go for a walk around to look at the houses with Christmas lights. It was cold out, but not insanely freezing. I walked around the neighborhood and through one of the nearby parks, but while I was walking through a portion of the path, I passed by a man sitting on a bench. Now, this part of the path was covered in trees and not by any houses, and the man was just sitting there alone. It was actually kind of sad, but when I passed by, he looked up at me and just gave me this really cold look. It was very strange and made me even more curious why he was out here. I walked quicker, reaching the end of the path and turning back to go home. The rest of the walk, all I was thinking about was the man and what he was up to. Something about his look just gave me a bad feeling. I got to the house and opened the front door, closing it behind me and taking my shoes off. But before I even started walking away, I heard a thump right outside the door. It startled me, having come so quickly after I'd gotten inside. I leaned over and looked through the peephole. It was the man from the path, standing on the porch and staring at the door. His face was completely blank, no smile or frown, just empty. I cracked open the door. "Are you okay?" The man looked at me with his emotionless eyes and didn't say a word. I asked again if he was okay or if he needed anything, but he didn't speak. Getting weirded out, I closed the door and went back to looking out the peephole. The man stayed there for at least a whole minute, then walked off to the side of the door until he was out of my view. I looked over, seeing the window curtains were open, giving the man a view into my house. For some reason, now I didn't want the man to see me, so I was afraid to go close the curtains. All he could probably view, though, was the Christmas tree and the couch, but it was still really unnerving knowing he was looking into my home. As I stood in place, trying to think of what to do next, a dull thud came from outside the window. I quickly stepped back and looked, seeing the man slam a large rock against the glass. His eyes were still glazed over with no emotion, making it look even more terrifying. I ran and locked myself in a room while I dialed 911, hearing the man continue to repeatedly hit the window. After a few hits, there was a pause. Then it began again, but it sounded like he may have moved to hitting the front door. This went on for what felt like several minutes, before finally it went quiet. When police pulled in, the man was nowhere around. Outside, though, there were multiple cracks in the window, and the door had entire chunks of wood smashed out and laying on the ground. The police seemed to think that it was just an intoxicated person based on the information I told them, and he likely had no real reason to target me specifically. Whatever the case, the way he was acting was just insane, and if he had gotten in, There's no saying what he would have done.
That's very creepy. I like that. Okay, so the last video that we are going to be reacting to is called the Snowman Christmas Holiday Specials and is another animated film, and the channel is Animated Horror Flicks. Again, I will link all of their videos, all the channels that I reacted to in the description box below, so go check them out.
This Christmas holiday marks the 4-year anniversary of what happened back at that cabin. It seems even longer than that, to be honest, but maybe that's because I've been dwelling on the memory of it for so long. On the one hand, the incident had inspired me to finally finish a new book, and I enjoyed a great deal of success. On the other hand, it was something that still haunts me and gives me nightmares to this day. My plan to spend Christmas alone at the retreat was a last-minute decision. I had been putting it off for the past year, so unsurprisingly, all of the cabins were fully booked. But I did manage to arrange a short stay at a caravan, which was about a mile away from the cabin where I had previously stayed. And although I did have some reservations about being out there again,
subtitles. I keep on forgetting to check
if they have subtitles. I figured it was the best way to finally overcome my writer's block. I had tried other retreats in the previous years, but there was nothing quite like that place. There was something about it. I felt drawn to it. And just after a few days of being back there, I found myself completely immersed and had just finished wrapping up the second chapter of my new book. The caravan wasn't quite as cozy or as isolated as the cabin, and it didn't do a great job of keeping out the cold either. Anyway, I decided to take the rest of the day off and just relax and tune into the local radio station for a few hours before turning in for the night. I might have fallen asleep sooner had it not been for a strange announcement over the radio. Apparently, there had been numerous reports of mysterious lights being sighted in the night sky. I wasn't a big believer in UFOs, but I was curious, and since the skylight of the caravan was completely covered in snow and I couldn't see all that much from the windows, I decided to step outside to see if I could get a glimpse of the strange lights for myself. Snowfall from the previous night had blanketed the entire area with a fresh coat of snow and ice, but I didn't let the chill distract me too much. But it wasn't long before my attention to the night sky was eventually drawn closer to the horizon, and that's when everything I had feared about returning to that place had come true. It was the snowman. Just as I remembered him. It wasn't too late to walk away, but despite the appeal, it also meant being back at my noisy apartment with an unfinished book, and most importantly, no answers either. Why me? Why this place? And why was it happening again? I was afraid, but I still felt compelled to stay at the caravan. Perhaps things might be different this time round. Maybe somehow, someone found out about my retreat, and this was some kind of elaborate hoax. It was at that moment I made a choice. I wasn't going to let the snowman drive me away. Not this time. Perhaps I could finally put an end to the nightmares.
This person does a really good
after a few minutes
way
of
of
sitting at the table
animating,
and collecting my thoughts,
honestly love
I
it.
peeked through the front window of the caravan. Maybe this time it was just a regular snowman. Wishful thinking, I know, but I decided to do my best and just ignore it, and try to get some sleep. I'm not sure how long it took me to finally drift off, but something woke me up suddenly from a deep sleep. I already knew that feeling, of course, the same feeling that I got when I was inside that cabin, except it seemed like more than just something I was hearing. I felt it all around me. I had kept the radio on, but now there was just static, and all I could hear was the cold storm outside. I began to wonder that maybe it was all just a dream, just another nightmare. There wasn't a snowman outside, and I was just being paranoid because I was back at that place. But then I opened the curtains. The snowman was still there and had moved closer. It really was happening again, and I had no idea how to stop it. I figured the best thing I could do was just try to ignore it, just carry on as usual and pretend it's not there.
Maybe close
so
the
I
curtains.
sat back at the table and began to work on
That's
my
what I
book.
would have done.
However, it wasn't long before I realized that ignoring the situation was going to be a lot more difficult than I thought, as I acknowledged the sound of snowballs hitting the caravan.
I really
Which
like how
eventually
they make
escalated,
the
or
animation
sounded
look.
like
It's
small
so
stones being thrown at the windows.
good, and I wish I could do animations like this. Maybe I'll start trying to.
It was obvious that the snowman didn't like being ignored, so once again, I approached the window and opened the curtains. But instead of the usual reaction, I found myself somewhat confused at what I saw. The snowman was missing a face, or perhaps now facing in the opposite direction. Either way, it was something that hadn't happened before, and I had a feeling I was in for a long night. After another stretch of deep sleep, I woke up again. I still wasn't sure exactly what caused me to wake up so suddenly, but it was strong. Then I noticed something strange. The skylight was no longer covered in snow. Perhaps it was the wind, but I'd never seen the sky through it before. Then I felt a cold chill, followed by something that genuinely gave me a scare. The caravan door was open. Initially, I thought I'd been robbed, but my belongings were still there. But some things definitely seemed out of place, and I no longer felt safe inside the caravan. As I went to close the door, I couldn't help sense that there was something unusual about the landscape, but it was hard to tell due to the heavy snowfall. It took me a while to work up the courage to open the curtains again, but with the benefit of hindsight, I braced myself for the worst. However, nothing could have prepared me for what I saw next. The snowman was gone, and for the first time that night, I experienced relief, albeit a hint of anxiety.
I never thought I would be scared of a freaking snowman.
The snowman was, or if he was still out there.
He is. Probably in
I was
the van
still
with
shaken
you.
up due to the apparent break-in, and took the mere notion that the snowman was gone as an opportunity to leave the caravan and check in to the nearby resort, which was only about a 10-minute walk away.
I just got scared by an ad.
However, after packing my things and stepping outside, the events of that night took a sinister turn. The resort was gone. There was no sign of anything on the horizon, not even the soft glow of distant lights. And that's when I realized the true gravity of what had happened. The caravan had been moved, somehow without leaving any trace.
What the heck?
I had no idea where I was or how far away I was from the resort. All I could see was a bland white landscape in every direction, and with the prospect of getting lost and freezing in the snow, I reluctantly returned to the caravan. It's been 3 days since I last saw the snowman, and as reassuring as that is, supplies are running low, and I have just enough gas to keep me going for a little while longer. Still trying to fathom how the caravan was moved and how it was done without leaving any tracks in the snow, I pondered over the possibility that I may never escape this place. All I can really hope for is that this story will help raise awareness of the hidden perils that lurk beyond the inherent dangers of being out there in the snow. It's not always the cold that gets us. There might be something out there, hiding in plain sight. Because wherever there's snow, there can always be a snowman.
Frosty the Snowman is coming to get you. I really like that one. It's leaving me with a lot of questions. I like it though. I like how they do their animations. I think we may have to check out more of their channel. I like that one. That one's pretty good. We're subscribing. Okay. So that was the 3 horror animations. I found the last one really interesting, and I really liked that one. The first one was kind of to me because it just reminded me of the Terrifier movie that just came out. Um, the second one with all those stories just shows like how people can be scary, and then this last one kind of made it seem like he was thrown into a different dimension, and I kind of want to have a sequel to that one. I kind of want to be like, did he ever get out? He, she, whatever. I mean, like, did they ever get out? And I really love the way that they animate. It looks really good. But comment down below your guys' thoughts on those. I will link all the channels in the description box below, and you guys could check them out. But yeah, those were 3 scary Christmas animations. One was a like 3-parter or whatever. So that one was a really good one. I really loved all of these. In my personal opinion, they are all really well created and really good animations and everything. But yeah, you can comment down below your thoughts on this video along with whatever videos you guys would like to see me do next. I do vlogs, reaction videos, morning, night routine, cooking, cleaning, gaming, all of the above on this channel. And you can go over to my other channel, Spirit Wolf Horror. I do creepypastas and your own personal stories that you guys submit. You can submit your own personal story with personal experience with the paranormal, along with just a story that you wrote or a creepypasta you would like me to read. I love hearing all your guys' suggestions. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and I hope y'all have a wonderful day.